Asterisk story title. Locked at 14. Dumped at grandma's, then they asked for my inheritance. Asterisk. I still remember the sound of the car door slamming that night. I was 14 years old, standing in the driveway of my grandmother's old farmhouse, clutching a small backpack and staring at the taillights of my parents' car as they drove away. They didn't even look back, not once. The gravel crunched under my shoes as I ran a few steps after them, hoping they'd stop, roll down the window, and say something, anything. But the car just disappeared into the dark road. And that was the night I realized I'd been left behind. Tell me honestly, if your own parents dumped you at your grandma's house and vanished, would you ever forgive them? At 14, I didn't even know what being abandoned meant. I thought maybe this was temporary. Maybe Mom and Dad needed some time to figure things out. But when the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I started to see the truth. My grandmother, bless her, wasn't exactly the warm, storybook grandma type. She was stern, quiet, and spent most of her time tending to her garden or reading old books in her rocking chair. But she did what my parents couldn't. She kept me safe. I remember sitting in her kitchen that first morning, staring at the cracked wallpaper and smelling coffee so strong it made my eyes water. She didn't ask questions, and I didn't know what to say. We just sat there in silence until she finally muttered, "You'll be all right here. Just don't expect me to baby you." I tried to adjust. School was weird because everyone kept asking why I was suddenly living with my grandma. I told them my parents were traveling for work. It was a lie, of course, but it was better than saying they didn't want me. Every time the phone rang, I hoped it was them. Every time the mail came, I hoped for a letter, but nothing ever came. My grandmother tried in her own tough, love way to make life stable. She taught me how to cook simple meals, how to tend to her plants, and how to stay quiet when things got hard. A year later, I found out the truth by accident. Grandma was on the phone with someone, and I overheard her say, "No, I don't care how broke they are. They're not taking a penny from that child's account. It's his, and that's final." I froze. My account. Later that night, I confronted her, and she sighed like she'd been waiting for this. "Your grandfather left you a trust fund," she said. "It's locked until you're 18. Your parents wanted access to it, but I told them no." My chest tightened. So that was it. They hadn't just left me. They'd left me because they couldn't get my money. My own parents had abandoned me for cash. I remember running to my room that night, crying until I couldn't breathe. I thought about every bedtime story, every hug, every "I love you" they'd ever said, and it all felt fake. They hadn't dropped me off because they were struggling or needed time. They'd done it because I was worth more to them as a dollar amount than as a son. Over the next few years, I built walls. Grandma and I got closer, in our own way, but I stopped expecting anything from my parents. Every birthday passed quietly. Every Christmas, Grandma and I ate dinner alone. Sometimes I'd get a card from Mom or Dad, but there was never a return address. Just empty words like "Hope you're doing well," or "We miss you." Lies, all of it. Then, when I turned 18, everything changed. I'd just graduated high school, and Grandma and I were sitting at the kitchen table, going through paperwork for the trust. It wasn't an insane amount of money, but it was enough to help me get through college, maybe even buy a small car. I was excited and nervous because it felt like the first time in my life that something good was actually mine. But that night, as if the universe couldn't let me have peace, there was a knock on the door. When I opened it, I froze. It was them, my parents. I hadn't seen them in 4 years, and suddenly, there they were, standing on Grandma's porch like nothing had happened. My mother looked nervous but tried to smile. My dad's expression was more serious, like he was there for business, not family. "Hey, champ," he said, like he used to when I was little. I didn't say a word. Grandma came to the door, saw them, and her face turned stone cold. "You have some nerve showing up here," she said. Mom tried to speak, but Grandma cut her off. "You can say what you came to say, then leave." They came in and sat down like guests at a stranger's house. The air felt heavy. Mom started with small talk, asking how I'd been, how school was, but it all sounded hollow. Then Dad cleared his throat and said, "We know you're about to get your inheritance, My heart dropped. Of course, that's why they were here. We've been going through some financial trouble, he continued. Your mom's health hasn't been great, and we could really use your help right now. He said it like I owed them something. Like they hadn't walked away when I needed them most. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked, "So now you remember you have a son?" My voice cracked, but I didn't care. Mom started crying, saying they made mistakes, that they were sorry, that they had no choice. But I wasn't buying it. Grandma was silent, just watching. Then Dad said something that made my blood boil. "It's just money, son. We're still family. Family helps each other out." That word family felt like poison. I stood up and said, "Family doesn't leave their kid behind because they can't touch his money." He tried to argue, but I told him to stop. I told them everything I'd held in for years, how it felt to be left there, how every night I waited for them, how I realized I was nothing more than a paycheck they couldn't cash. Mom sobbed, but Dad just sat there, stone-faced, like he still didn't think he'd done anything wrong. Finally, I told them to get out. "If you need money," I said, "maybe you should have thought of that before abandoning your child." Grandma didn't say a word. She just watched them walk out the door again. This time, I didn't chase after them. So that's the situation I was in. My parents had left me for years and came crawling back the moment I had something they wanted. I had to make a decision. Do I forgive them, give them some money, or shut them out completely? Before I tell you what I did next, I want you to pause for a second and think. What would you have done in my place? Would you have given them a second chance, or slammed the door like they once did to you? Comment below. I really want to know what you'd have done. A few days passed after they left, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Part of me still craved their love, that impossible wish that maybe things could be different. But another part of me, the part that had learned to survive without them, knew better. They'd made their choice when they drove away all those years ago. Still, something inside me wanted closure. So, I decided to meet them one last time. I called them and said we could talk. We met at a diner near town. Mom looked hopeful. Dad looked like he was ready to negotiate. I told them straight up, "I'm not giving you my inheritance, not a single cent." Mom's eyes filled with tears again, but I didn't waver. I told them that I might someday forgive them, but not because they asked for it. Because I needed peace. I told them I wasn't their bank. I wasn't their mistake to fix, and I wasn't going to keep pretending we were some broken version of a family. I told them I hoped they'd find help somewhere else, but not from me. Dad looked furious, said something about how ungrateful I was, and stormed out. Mom stayed behind for a minute, quietly whispering, "I really am sorry." I didn't know if she meant it, or if she was just sad the money was gone. Either way, I nodded and said goodbye. That was the last time I saw them. After that, I focused on building my life. I used the inheritance for college, just like I'd planned. Grandma passed away 2 years later, and losing her hurt more than losing my parents ever did. She'd been the only real family I'd known. At her funeral, I looked at her picture and whispered, "Thank you for keeping me safe." She never said much about my parents again after that first day, but I think she knew I needed her silence more than I needed her words. Sometimes I wonder where my parents are now. I haven't heard from them since that day in the diner. No letters, no calls, nothing. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Maybe they're out there regretting it, or maybe they've moved on like I did. Either way, I finally learned something. Blood doesn't make you family, love does. And sometimes the people who love you aren't the ones who brought you into this world. They're the ones who refused to let you be broken by it. If you've ever been in a situation where someone tried to come back into your life just because you had something they wanted, you'll understand why I did what I did. People can call it cold, but it was self-respect. After years of silence, I chose me for once. So, was I wrong for not helping my parents when they asked for my inheritance? Or was I finally doing what they never did? You became a mirror, myself. Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this, and tell me in the comments what would you have done in my shoes. I'll see you all in the next story.